I'd like to welcome Danielle Rippengill to Discover Creative Careers. Thank you for coming to talk to us today about careers in graphic design and your career and experience. So if you're happy, I will hand over to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me share this so that you've got everything. Everyone can see, are we good?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Okay, that's good. Just double checking. You don't want the worst thing when no one can see your screen and you're talking.
And no one says anything.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, my name is Danielle Rippengill, and I was a student at Anglia Ruskin, did my undergraduate BA and my MA here as well, and I'm now actually an associate lecturer at the university. But mostly today I'm just going to talk about how I got there and how I got where I am at the minute. So I also work as a graphic designer. I work at a children's book publisher, so I'll show you some examples of the work and my journey there as well. And like Sarah said, any questions that you might have, you can jot them down as we're going through and make a note of them and then ask them at the end. So my journey is interesting and slightly complicated all at the same time, really. Obviously, I was from Norfolk in Kings Lynn in Norfolk, so I went to Springwood High School and did my GCSEs and my A levels there. I had no idea what I wanted to do at this point. Even from a young age, I had crazy ideas of wanting to be a ballet dancer or a footballer. Nothing really took my fancy in design at the time, so I didn't have a great experience at school. So I just about scraped through my GCSEs. I got 5 GCSEs C and above, and until I got to do my A levels, it wasn't really then that I was introduced to any form of design, really. And my friends all were studying media studies, and at the time my boyfriend was, and I remember thinking, oh, okay, then I'm just going to go and do media studies with everybody else because I don't know what I want to do, and this could be fun for 2 years. So doing my A levels at school was really good experience for me, and media studies was the first time that I was introduced to any of the Adobe software. Researching music magazines, researching layouts and grid systems. It was the first time that any of that had been introduced to me. So my first project was to create a music magazine, and it was to create a front cover, a contents page, and a double page spread. I was actually clearing out some wardrobes the other day and I'd found it, and looking back now when I was 17 compared to where my design is now, it's horrific, but really good for me. Really one of the best things that ever happened in my life was doing that. So I created a music magazine, and I then in the second year did a film, and I knew that film was not something that I wanted to be into. So I knew that it had to be printed, that it was more than likely that it was going to be multi-page documents that I really enjoyed. But there were lots of things that made me not want to go to university, and there were lots of questions I had about graphic design that just weren't answered. So I had no idea if I could make a career out of doing it, and I was sort of finding out how I could be a graphic designer, what routes I could take. Could I do an internship? Could I maybe go freelance? Would I definitely need a degree to be a graphic designer? Because going to university terrified me, and it was not something that I planned to do at all in my life. So I took a gap year. I was unsure where to go next. I worked full-time for a year, just in retail, making money and trying to save up some, and thinking if I went to university, I'm probably going to need some backup money. If I don't go to university, I could buy a house or I could do something. So it wasn't, for me, it was a really good opportunity to get experience in talking to people, earning money, and just having some life experience at the age of 18 of working full time. I did my year and I still didn't want to apply for university. So I thought, okay, the next best thing that I have at the moment is to go to the College of West Anglia, and they had a level 3 BTEC extended diploma in graphic design. And I thought, well, 2 years of working fully on design projects will definitely answer my question as to, can I be a graphic designer? Am I really any good at it? What job prospects are there for me? And if I can spend 2 years at college working as a graphic designer student, then, maybe I could go to university, maybe. So I applied for this course and I got straight in, and my tutor was absolutely incredible. And in my second year at college, I still had no intentions of applying for university. And even at the age of, I think I must have been 20 at that point, I had a parents' evening, which was really weird. So my mum came to my parents' evening at 20, because obviously I went to college late. You know, you can, as you all know, you can do your GCSEs and then go to college. So obviously I did my GCSEs, then my A levels, and I took a year out and then went back to college. So I was also one of the older students in the class as well. So parents' evening at 20 with my mum was surreal, but it was fun. My tutor just sat there and said, Danielle's doing great, and we've got 3 days until the university deadline, and she needs to apply. And we sat there for half an hour, not discussing my work, not discussing my progress that I'd made over the 2 years, discussing all the reasons why I should go to university and how it would benefit me, and what I would get out of it. And me kind of sitting there listening, thinking, no way can I do this. It was confidence, I think, as well as the unknown. And being away from my family really made me nervous, because I'm really close with my family and I'd been through so much with them. And as a child, you know, losing family members sort of scared me. So university had all of that sort of compiled with the anxiety of it. But with 3 days to the deadline, the next day I'd written my personal statement. My tutor Vince had checked it over. My mum had checked it over. I applied for Anglia Ruskin, and I also applied for another university, knowing full well that I didn't want to go. I always knew if I wanted to go to university that Anglia Ruskin was going to be the one, because I'd come for some open days in the thought of potentially going to university in the future. And open days are really great because you can see the university and they make you feel, you know, you can find yourself feeling at home in places and not so much in others. So they're really, really good to decide where you think you can fit in and where you'd get the best out of the courses that you want to apply for. So 3 days till the deadline is when I applied to go to Anglia Ruskin, the Cambridge School of Art, and I applied for the BA Honours Graphic Design course. And I was actually just explaining to Sarah a little while ago that because I'd got my A levels, I technically didn't need to get my results from my BTEC. So I'd already got 3 A levels, which allowed me to be straight onto the course. So I actually got an unconditional offer. And I honestly thought that it should have said unsuccessful, because I was just not full of confidence about being at university. I thought that I wasn't going to be very good. The whole prospect of coming to Cambridge, and it just really scared me. I was a really quiet student to begin with, didn't say very much to anybody. I never wanted to stand up in front of a class and present my work. And my first day, I was just so convinced that my name wasn't going to be on the register. And I know, like, the lecturers now that I work with, we kind of laugh about it now, because you just can't believe that mistake would never happen. But when you think you've got sort of imposter syndrome and you don't deserve to be there. So I had a lot of that throughout my time at university, because I've been through a lot of school and not being very academically good, as teachers would sort of see it as. But you just need to find the subject where you can find your feet. And once you've found the subject that's fun for you, that you're interested in, I think that's where you're able to flourish and you're able to grow. And this is what happened with design for me. So when I started, like I said, I was a very quiet student, very quiet in the first year. It wasn't until I was able to gain some confidence within my work, and I took as many opportunities as I possibly could. So in second year, I was able to become a student rep for the course. I also used to go to London and Manchester, and they used to be, I don't know if they still do them, but they used to be called Design Your Future. And you used to represent the course, and you would talk to prospective students about it, and it would just be really fun. And being able to go out and talk to people about something that I was really passionate about was something that really helped my confidence. And the first time I did it, I didn't think I was going to be very good, and I thought I'd shy away from it, but it was really, really, really fun. And talking to prospective students about what I was doing as a student, like, it was really exciting for me, and being able to share that experience and know that I had been in their exact position only a few years ago, and think I'd only been a second year student and I'd already come so far in 1 year. I really enjoyed it. So I'd definitely recommend anybody to be a student rep and get involved in these things and take as many opportunities as you can in your first and second year and even your third year as well. But you can even get involved with open days, and they're really good to explore with students as well. And as part of the graphic design course, there are applicant days. There are also, when you come for your interviews, we used to give students tours with their parents around the university, around the art school, and then take them up to their interviews and sort of answer any questions that they might have had. And I really enjoyed all of that so much. It really, the opportunities I got from the lecturers were unbelievable, and I took every single one of them. I never said no because I knew that it would help me grow as a person and as a student. And I loved the art school so much. I still do. So I still, I still want to be here. I still want to work here. So for me, just being in the art school every day was great, and meeting new students from other courses is really fun as well. There are so many courses in the art school, BA and MA. And it's really great to see what other students on like a fine art course or the illustration course are up to. So I really enjoyed that, and I'd encourage people to make as many friends as you can with other students as well. But when I got into my second trimester of my second year, I was offered the opportunity to teach, and it was for the Saturday Art Club, which is part of the Soul Foundation. And it was just a 4-week course that we would do on a Saturday to students, sort of 14-year-olds to 16-year-olds. And I had no idea what it was going to be like, never taught before, didn't even consider being a teacher or a lecturer. Just thought, oh, this will be fun to get students involved with the art school. And we arranged an exhibition for them. We went to London. They had created some book covers, and we went down to the print room and the facilities, and it was so much fun. And I really enjoyed it. But still, at this point, I don't think I ever really considered being a teacher as much. It wasn't until perhaps a bit further along in second year I thought, actually, I really enjoyed that. And when I was asked to come back and do it again in my third year at university, that's when I definitely knew that I wanted to be a teacher in the arts, and preferably at university level. But I knew that was going to be a bit of a journey for me. But you sort of take it step by step. Didn't plan too far ahead, just sort of thought, right, I need to get through my BA, my undergraduate first, and we'll see. Because for me, just getting a degree was a massive achievement, and thinking about doing an MA was sort of never really on the cards. So that was confusing at the time, because I thought I definitely need an MA, but to do one was also back to square one again. I thought, I'm terrified of this. I've only just done my undergraduate. But talking to people really helped me. And at my graduation in 2016, I did the vote of thanks. So I spoke at the Cambridge Corn Exchange, and I did a vote of thanks in front of I don't know, thousands of people that were there, and I loved it. And I didn't ever think I'd be able to do that. And as I said to Sarah before, if you take me back to when I was 18, so like 12 years ago now, and if you'd have told me that by the time I was 30 that I would have a degree and I'd have an MA, I'd be a graphic designer and making children's books, and I'd be a university lecturer, I wouldn't have believed you. I really wouldn't have. So it has really been a journey for me, and something that I never anticipated. And I don't think I realised any of this before I came to university. So it's really helped me being at the school, Cambridge School of Art. And my graphic design route, after I realised that I wanted to be a teacher, I knew that I definitely didn't want to do web design or app design. I wasn't particularly interested in that side of design at all. Mine was multi-page documents, and it all stemmed from me doing my music magazine at my A-levels, which was years ago. But it's been my love of typography and grid systems and layouts, and something that I knew that I had to pursue my career in. So when I graduated, the first job, I applied for several different jobs, but one of the first jobs that I saw that I wanted was, so I work at Book Life. They're a children's book publisher in Norfolk, an independent one. We're quite small, but we do fiction and non-fiction books. And again, I applied for this job thinking I'm definitely not going to get it. I've got my portfolio together, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, really, and see how that goes. But I was very lucky in the fact that they were able to accommodate my MA. So I did my MA part-time and then worked around working sort of 40 hours a week as well at the children's book publishers, and just sort of grew and grew with confidence there. And I'm still there. So 5.5 years later, or 6 years now, I think, I'm still there, still growing, still trying to do the best children's books and make the best children's books that I possibly can. But for my MA, this was one of the projects that I did, so I thought I'd show you one of these. Don't know if anybody watches RuPaul's Drag Race, but one of my interests is pattern creation, and my final major project was based around pattern creation through RuPaul's Drag Race. So all these different patterns and different creations that I had were all stemmed from season 6 of the top 4 drag queens. And I really love drag queens. I love the scene. I love going back to the 1980s and looking at the drag scene in America. I have a lot of interest there, and a lot of my research sort of inspirations come from these moments. So, if you're going into a design course, it's really good to find the things that you're interested in, because as you proceed throughout the course, you'll be able to write your own briefs, which is really fun. But you've got to be interested in something. So find an artist, or it doesn't even have to be related to graphic design. And creation, this is technically counts as fashion, really, in a way, because they're costumes, they're RuPaul's outfits, they're the drag queens outfits. But when you incorporate that into graphic design, you can bring in anything really that you want to, and that's how I sort of made my projects in my MA. And it took me the whole of my BA to get to the point where I was confident enough to bring this kind of stuff into my work. Mostly I was wanting to get the best grade possible, so I sort of used to just do what I had to do to tick the boxes to get good grades, and I never really thought about the projects. I just sort of did them because that was my lack of confidence in not trusting what I was interested in, and being scared of what other people would think I liked was a bad thing, or being able to incorporate pattern creation for me was something I wanted to do, and I just didn't feel happy to do it for a while until I knew there was definitely the right project for me. And this is when I got there. So even till the end of my MA, it took a while to get to the point where I was confident to do my own work and talk about it and just explore it. And this project was so huge for me. It was a massive turning point from a personal perspective, because one of the projects, as a part-time MA student, your final major project lasts for 6 months. So to have a project that you're interested in for that long, you've really got to make it work for you. And the most important thing you have to do is have fun. If you can have fun with it, and it's a subject that you like, then you could work on it for longer, way longer than 6 months. So I had to rein it in a bit, actually, because I got too excited to involve with everything. But it was a really, really interesting project. And as I said, as you progress through the courses, you write your own briefs. So it's really good to have your own interests and bring them with you to university. But here are some examples of what I do in my publishing career. So these books were published, I think, a year or so ago now, maybe 2 years in the UK. I think they were published less than a year ago in America. So they're called Pride In, and they're about people from across the LGBTQIA plus community who celebrate who they are. And as you can see, there was actually a sneaky RuPaul on the front of the arts one, obviously, because you have to, as I say, I have to bring everything into clubs. So these books are one of my favourite books that I've ever done at work. And actually, I was lucky enough to be nominated for an award last year with these, and really fortunate that we won. So me and Emily, who was the writer, these books were our idea from the very start. And our publishing house, we I don't know why they're called Book Jam, but we have these days where they're called Book Jam. And we bring all of our ideas, we research into the industry, we see what the patterns are, we see what is popular, we see where people are finding gaps in the children's books. We have people who contact us who think that, or schools, and they also say there's a gap here, can you fill it for us? Or we'd like a book on a specific subject, would you be able to do this book for us? And we go to book fairs. So we go to Shanghai, we go to London Book Fair, Bologna and Frankfurt. We also go over to America as well. And we speak to them, and we speak to the people that buy the rights to our books around the world as well, and where they think are gaps in their market. So when Emily and I pitched this idea, at the time, this idea was probably pitched maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So it takes a while to get a book into production. It doesn't sort of happen overnight. And if you go back 3 or 4 years ago, books for children about LGBTQI plus and gender were quite limited. There wasn't very much out there for them. In fact, these were one of the first series that came out that filled that gap in children's publishing. And when we did the research into more covers and more books that are out there, it was very, very limited. I only found a handful of them, whereas now when you search these books, there are tons and tons and tons of them. So we sort of hit the curve of when these books became more popular and when the demand was higher for them. So, like I said, we pitched this idea. It was our idea from the very start. We knew exactly what we wanted. Emily wrote all of the books, so there's just 4 in the series, and I designed it and also Vector illustrated it. So it's all one of those books that you get to work on from start to finish. And like I said, last year, even in lockdown, we did the awards via Zoom, and it was a bit surreal, but it was great. And it's the first award that I've ever won for a children's book, so I'm really proud of this series. And again, one of my absolute favourites that I've ever produced. And here is another one. This is one of the more recent ones. This book has only just been published, I think 6 months ago. And sort of similar, really. It's about trailblazing people. So people that have achieved amazing feats in lots of different fields. It can be from politics to space exploration, physics to coding. So it includes all of their achievements, everything that they've been through. And as you can see, me and Emily work on books quite closely together, and we're a really good pair at work. We tend to always pair up together. We like creating books that challenge people, and that when children see themselves in the books, then they find people that they can admire and they can look up to. And we try and design books that are as inclusive as possible as well. There's a really big gap in the market where children's books were just not inclusive at all. And when you've got children that can't see themselves in their books, you want them to have something to look for. You want to inspire them. They're sort of the next generation, really. And books are a great place to do that for children to learn. So that's sort of where we aim to go, Emily and I, when we're creating our books. As I said, we do fiction and non-fiction. So non-fiction can be a bit boring sometimes, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've done books on sharks. I've done books on castles. I've done books on maps, places around the world, and whilst that's really interesting for other people, for me, I prefer to do things that I feel are really going to change children, and also try and make them more accepting to other people so that they can learn and be encouraged about these things. So this is what my sort of best area of interest in children's books, really. But I've done quite a variety, and obviously there's a gap, or there was a gap in our publishers backlog of books where we hadn't created any books based around art, nothing at all. So again, Emily and I pitched this idea at Book Jam, and we said, we don't do any art books, and there's a massive demand for art books and activities for younger children. So we came up with an idea of trying to create a series that actually didn't include pieces of artwork, because they can be really hard and really expensive to get hold of, photographs of real work by Pablo Picasso, for example. And as a small independent publisher, we don't always have the funds to be able to get hold of those images or find ways around. We have to, because they're cheaper. So this was the way of doing it, doing vector illustrations and making activities that helped children create examples of work like Pablo Picasso or Andy Warhol, anybody that they could recreate their own piece of work. So there would be a page about the artist, and there'd be a couple of pages of the activity, and then at the very end the work is then sort of got an opening night at a gallery. So that were the first art books that we did, and that was, again, Emily and I sort of did these together because we thought that children need to learn more about surrealism and pop art. There's massive history in art, and we felt like there was such a gap, and there wasn't many books where you could explore this for children, and it fits in with the curriculum really well. So schools were able to buy into it, and they really loved it, which was really great for us as a success. And then here are just a handful of other series I've done. The wearing a mask and the wash my hands, that obviously came from lockdown. So we used to have a series called Why Do I, and it has an extensive range of books, probably about, I don't know, 12 books in it now. But yeah, so we sort of expanded that with lockdown for children to try and help. But we've done lots of different series, and these are just a small handful. I think I've probably made now not sure, 150 or 200 books now that I've had published in my nearly 6 years of being at Book Life. So it's been incredible and a really great experience for me. And to have your book published and hold either a paperback or a hardback cover in your hands with your name in, it's incredible when you're interested in publishing. So really, really good for me, and the best thing that I could have possibly done from me being the sort of 16, 17-year-old me, creating a really bad music magazine that I now look back onto, to now being able to publish children's books. So a really big different journey that I didn't anticipate that I'd be able to take. So really grateful for that. But in terms of portfolio, now these are sort of things that I wanted to just talk through with everybody, because obviously if you're going to be applying for university, it's really important to have these things in place. So as a rough guide, your portfolio should include around 15 to 20 pieces of work, and about 4 to 5 projects. So I constantly, as a designer, you have to keep your portfolio up to date. So what is really good getting printed books when they finally come through. There's sort of 2 years after you've designed them is when you finally get a copy in your hands. So it takes a while, but having a portfolio put together is, like I said, it's really important. And you can prepare a digital one and a physical one. And specifically through lockdown, you haven't been able to see people in person. So having a digital portfolio that you can design as well as send to people is really good. So I have a digital one as well, which can be a form of even just a PDF that has been designed, and it's got your work in. I find that's really useful. You can send that across to people really quickly, or you can send them across to your website, and they both link quite well together. When you're preparing for your interview, you should try and be flexible with your portfolio. So change it up. I mean, before I got my job in publishing, as I said, I applied for several different jobs, and I went for an interview somewhere, and all of my portfolio was based around publishing and multi-page documents. And this company said to me, have you had any experience in app design? Have you had any experience in web design? And I said, oh yeah. So I got my website up and I said, these are the websites that I've designed. This is the apps that I've designed. And the guy was really nice to me, because I'd only just finished at university, being very inexperienced in interviews. He said, I'd come back with your portfolio with the things that are on your website. So at the minute, he said, it looks like your portfolio is just based in publishing. And when you talk about where you want to be, it sounds like it's publishing, it's not in a branding agency. He said, if you do want to come back and continue your interview, then I'd advise you to change your portfolio and make sure that you've got things in there that represent us as a company that we would look for. So I think that's a really good point when you're applying for university, is just to think about the things that you are putting in your portfolio and try and show a range of things, not just one thing that you think you're good at. Sometimes it's just experimental work that people can see in your thought process that's really helpful. You just want to sort of showcase your skills. So live drawing, even if you're applying for a graphic design course, you can still show drawings. It can be experimentation both digitally and physically from various different forms of media, including photography. So it's not just about the outcomes in design, it's about the process and how you get there. And whatever you put in your portfolio, you have to be happy to talk about. I've made the mistake before of putting things in because I think people want to see them, but actually I'm not keen on the project and I really didn't like the outcomes, and I can't really talk about it because it's not fun for me. So, seeing students talk freely and enthusiastically whilst getting excited about their work is really important in an interview. And even now being an associate lecturer at the Cambridge School of Art, when students are excited about their work, we're excited about their work. When they're not, you don't really get that conversation flowing. You can't exchange ideas and be in the room and enjoy conversations with people that open up complete new opportunities for you. So that's really important to be able to do that. And just make sure that your portfolio is professional and well looked after. I've had to buy several different boxes for my portfolio because it's either covered in cat hairs or it's been battered around a bit or carried around. So just make sure if you do turn up in person to an interview that it's not just scrappy pieces of paper and that sort of thing. You want to make sure that it's all well presented in a clean and clear manner. And as I said, just keep everything up to date. So even when you're a graphic design student or in any other design courses, you just want to make sure you're constantly keeping it up to date, so that at any given moment, if somebody wanted to see your work or you had an opportunity for an internship, you are ready at a drop of a hat to pretty much send across your work or your website, and give them everything as up to date as possible for them to be able to look at and feed back to you on. So really good tips that I always think about with my portfolio, as well as what I'd recommend for students for their courses as well. If you're looking at your online presence now, a lot of you have probably all got Instagram, so that's probably the way forward nowadays. But having an online presence is really important for a designer, because it's quick and easy to find people and directly find your work. You can just search someone's name and there's their website. You can find their Instagram, you can find their handles, you can everything, or even a Behance account as well. So there are several websites that you can do these on. Now, if you've got the Adobe software, for our students at CSA, my first year students, they've got free versions of the Adobe software. It comes with coming to university for us, and this means they're allowed to have Adobe portfolio. So that's also free. You can have a website and you don't need to pay for it, because you get Creative Cloud free as a student at the Cambridge School of Art in the graphic design course. So that's a really good thing to have. So if you're thinking about putting a website together, if you already got Creative Cloud, that can be a really good way of doing it. Now, Cargo is where I actually have my website. So they're one of the places, I would say one of the best places. You can have a free version, so you don't have to pay for it. You can be limited to a few things, but there is a paid version as well. But Cargo Collective is really good. It's designed for designers, and it's really well designed as well. But Squarespace can be another good one. And I think there's a Google one as well. If you've got a Google account, you can have that for free. That I was talking about with someone recently. So, these are really good. If you're worried about your portfolio and you don't think you've got enough in it, there are websites that do weekly briefs. So like weekly tasks that they set you, and you don't have to enter the competitions. You can just do them. So, they're really good, and Creative Boom do some really good ones as well that you can just fill your portfolio with, ready for interviews. And it shows that you're willing to be doing things that you're interested in as well outside of your education. And competition briefs are really good as well. For the students, we always do the Penguin Book Awards. Every year, we usually, I don't want to talk it up this year because we've just submitted the second year ones, but usually we do quite well in them. So the Penguin Book Awards is a good one to enter. There's D&AD, New Blood Awards that are really good as well. So these sort of things can, even if you don't enter the competitions before coming to university, they're good ways to challenge yourself, how to answer a professional brief, and to fill your portfolio. So I definitely recommend doing them before university and continue to do them when you go to university as well. So yeah, just your portfolio and your online presence is really, really important as a student. And when you leave university, you're also then prepared. You don't want to get to the point at the end of third year and go, well, I've just finished my degree, now what? You want to have your options open, contacting people, making lists of places that you think you might want to work or that you could work, and contacting those, finding specific names as well is really good. Best to look at that rather than just somebody in admin. You want to make sure that you know who the designers are that you can contact straight away. They're really good ways to make connections and network with people as well. So I definitely recommend that for students. And I think we're all done. So thank you all for listening. And if anyone does have any questions, then please just write it in the chat box and Sarah can read it out. Or, if you're happy to talk, then just shout out. Thanks, Sarah.
You, Danielle. That was you speak really articulately. It's amazing. You're really fluent in the way you kind of come across, and just like really inspirational story that you didn't even think university was an option for you, and some might say that your teachers and family have kind of had to give you a big push to get you there, and yet here you are as a university lecturer. It's amazing. I noticed like a few things when I was speaking to Catherine this morning. It's kind of like there are a few things that I kind of felt were parallel. One was which like you both had kind of teachers or like creative people who were kind of really backing you. And I think it comes across from what you say about when you're teaching now, it is kind of like creativity is a passion. And if you see that in a young person, you really kind of want to nurture that and develop that.
You really do. And I think that's what happened with me as well. I think it's one of those things where if people can see something in you, you just sort of have to trust that those people know what they're talking about. They've been in the industry for so long. you know, they know what to look for with students. And I think even now, sometimes I still have to do it. I have to remember those people that first believed in me and gave me the opportunities that I've got. Because sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. We've all got imposter syndrome, I think, at some point, and that can get too much. You have to keep an eye on it, really. But yeah, I think that's what happened. They saw something in me, and I have to remember that, and I'm grateful for that, really am. But it wasn't something that came naturally to me. It's something that you know, you have to learn as you go and follow the guidance, I think. And that's what's really great about the lecturers on the graphic design course. They did that with me and really helped me to where I am now.
But as well, it seems like you've taken loads of different opportunities and really, really kind of run with them. And, you know, you mentioned like a 40-hour week. You know, you obviously work quite hard as well, you know, and you're quite
I
driven.
wouldn't recommend it, I have to say, if you're going to do an MA, even if obviously I did it part-time, but I wouldn't recommend working 40 hours a week. But it's just one of those things that you do because I love the job, really wanted to do an MA, and they're just, what else can you do? You don't want to quit your job, you don't want to not do the MA, so you just do it for 2 years and you make it work. And I wouldn't change it. It was hard, but I wouldn't have changed it.
We've got some questions here. So Willow asked, what's your advice on how to break into children's book publishing? Have you got any specific advice on that?
Yeah, a really good way to do it is to several things. Always make sure that, like I was saying about your portfolio, so always have a website or a handle on Instagram that somebody can easily go to. If you go to bookstores and you look at books and there are particular books that you enjoy or that you think that you would like to create, go and have a look on the back pages or the front pages where all the publishing information is, and make a list of all of your publishers that you would like to work for, or that you think that you could give them something that they're not quite got at the minute, and then get in contact with them. The best way to do it is to just go straight for it and get in contact with them. Now you can go freelance. There's like places that you can advertise yourself as being an illustrator, and you can then sort of get help in finding different publishers that are looking for illustrators for specific books. But for us as a publisher, it's always when we're doing, because fiction is a new thing for us, so we mostly found either people came to us when we were advertising and we were saying we wanted to get into fiction, so we would look at portfolios and we'd have cover letters. So they're the things that we sort of base our illustrations or freelance illustrators around. So a really good thing to do as well, if you can possibly do it, is to go to book fairs and try and speak to publishers, because, you know, that's a massive opportunity to be able to do that. But just making sure that you've got your online presence is really important, so that when people search you, they can find your work straight away. But getting in contact, you have to do the hard work for it to get into children's publishing. Like I said, make a list of all the publishers. I've done exactly the same thing. Make a list of all the publishers, write a really good, strong cover letter, guide them to your website, send them some of your work, even send them a digital portfolio as well. Explain to them either, you know, your situation, you're ready for full-time work, part-time work, what it is that you are after and how you think that you could work for them. That's one of the best ways to do it. And when I say list of publishers, I mean a massive list of publishers that you would like to work for. And don't always go for the big obvious ones. You know, there are some really, I work for a small independent publisher. So for me, I'd say also try and find the really niche small publishers, because you've probably got more opportunity to start off there. And then once you've got some experience in the publishing industry, then if you wanted to, you're in a better position to then start applying for the, you know, the bigger publishers, like the top 5, for example.
Thank you. That's really interesting. So like I'm aware of Bologna Book Fair. And obviously we do the MA in children's book illustration, and lots of our students get publishing deals that way. But that's very much like hand-drawn illustration. And actually, I wasn't really aware of your kind of area of publishing, which is like, I mean, you call it vector illustration. Yeah. So that's essentially digital drawing. What package do you use? So do you hand draw everything on Illustrator, or?
No, see, I would never. This is a really tricky one for me, because I would never advertise as being an illustrator, ever. Always a graphic designer, never an illustrator. But there are some projects that I have done at work that do require me to expand my knowledge and expertise in different areas. So we either use Photoshop or Illustrator to do, well, for me anyway, like we have freelance and in-house illustrators that have actual degrees in illustration, and they do all the fiction stuff because there is no way that I would go near fiction. So, but for the non-fiction, with the vector illustrations, that was not something that I learned really at university to do that. That was something that I did whilst I was doing my MA, and whilst working at the children's book publisher, because there was a gap in our publishing backlog of books that were either they were full on photography or they were full on illustration for the fiction. There was no in between. So we were trying to bridge the gap between the two, and vector illustration sort of became a bit more popular in children's books as well. So I then just explored it more. It wasn't something that I intended to do, I have to admit. And I, like I say, never advertised myself as an illustrator, but it's a skill, I guess you could say, that I've picked up along the way and worked at over the years of being there.
But this kind of comes back around to what you and I were chatting about earlier, that actually what a kind of creative degree teaches you about is about how to adapt and how to problem solve and be creative in those ways and adapt your learning to fit other situations, where perhaps there are some kind of degrees which are a bit more vocational, and it's like, this is what you're going to do and that's what your skill set, you know.
It's exactly that.
You've taught yourself a new skill, which is great.
Yeah. As I said earlier, like, you're just problem solving as a graphic designer a lot. Like, you spend your day sort of, you get given, so we have in-house writers, publishers, and they write the books for us, and all we get is like a Microsoft Word document with all the copy on. So we do all the typesetting, and then it's just a case of looking at your blank spread and thinking, right, okay, let's go. How are we going to make this into a children's book? And obviously you have various meetings with the writers and the editors to discuss what you think it was going to look like, and how that's going to work for us as a designer and for them as the editors and the writers. But mostly you are problem solving. Like, you've got a ton of copy to fit on the page with illustrations or imagery. You know, how are you going to make that look good? With what grid system are you going to use? What baseline grid? You know, there's so many questions as a designer, and those are the sorts of things that you learn, that I learned at university. So I learned how to set my grids up. I learned how to do the basics of multi-page document design. But in terms of applying all of that to where you are, that's sort of your choice after that. You can learn all the rules, but when you go out into the industry, you've also got to bear in mind that you're working for different companies as well. So you've got to think about what they want and what they need and what their brand guidelines is. It's not always about how you can make it look good. So there's a lot of compromise and a lot of problem solving that comes with it.
Yeah, and I think what you've sort of done quite interestingly is, like, you know, I think children's book illustration is a really popular market. But both you yourself, in terms of finding publishers that needed your skill set, but also your publishers in finding those gaps in the market, I think that in itself is quite a skill, because you can't all go chasing the same kind of market. You can't all go chasing the same kind of jobs. So
no, exactly. And I think, you know, the reason that I knew I wanted to go into publishing, I don't know if I knew I ever wanted to go into children's book publishing, but I knew it was publishing. And at the time when I first started there, we only did non-fiction books. So it was purely just image and text that you would be laying out, or doing like magazine design and brochure design, and marketing. So those are the types of things that, like we said, like with the vector illustrations, I didn't anticipate ever having to learn about that. But then you're in that position and you want to. Like, I get really excited. I'm thinking, oh, this is something new I can do. Like, and I love a challenge. Like, I really thrive on challenges. I love books that challenge my design. They challenge the way I think. And I think if you're hungry for that, like, you're constantly seeking it out. And that's the part that I really enjoy. I love, you know, and again, it's a problem solve. So I think that must be what I'm addicted to.
Yeah, great. I mean, I love those art books. I might go and hunt some of those out for my kids. I think you're quite right. There's nothing quite else like that out there. So, does anyone have any questions for Danielle? If you do, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I've got a couple of questions for you, Danielle. If you could go back and speak to yourself when you were 18 or 17, what do you think you would say to yourself?
I'd probably probably tell my younger self to pull myself together and go to a university. Like if I could, it's one of those things, like if I could go back to when I was 16 and I could tell my younger self, you know, by the time you're 30, this is where you're going to be right now. Then like, so I wouldn't have believed it. But also I think, you know, I'd have told myself to just believe in myself a bit more, because I never did. I mean, I'm not even saying that I do now, but you know, you sort of learn to live with it as you get older. But when I was younger, I think I didn't have that many people behind me that were supporting me. So if I had an older me supporting me all the way through, I think I probably would have done it all a lot sooner. But your journey is your journey, isn't it? So you know, but if I could go back, yeah, I definitely tell myself to have more confidence and that I should believe in myself, because if you set your mind to something and you really, really want to do it and you're happy to work hard for it, then you will make it work. You'll do it.
So other than doing it sooner, which actually you might not have been ready for it if you'd done it sooner, who knows?
Exactly.
But other than that, would there be anything that you would do differently if you had to do it again?
I think I'd be I don't know if I'd do necessarily things differently. It would obviously be, yeah, I wish that I'd have been at university sooner, but you have to think, I always think everything happens for a reason. That sounds a bit cliche, but there's a reason that I didn't go to university when I was 18 and I went when I was 21. There's a reason for those sorts of things, and I don't know if I was maybe mature enough, or whether I felt like I was ready to go, or those are the things that I would change. I mean, if I could go back to when I was at school, I think I probably would have tried to have worked harder. Like I said, I only just about scraped 5 GCSEs, so I was really lucky that I just about managed to do that at the time. But I wish I could change that. Like, I wish I'd have been a better student at school, and I wish I'd have been more inquisitive. I wish I'd have asked more questions. I wish I'd have read more books. I wish I'd have experienced more. But you know, perhaps me not being so great at school meant that when I really found what I wanted to do, and that was design, specifically graphic design, then I really wanted to run with it. Like, I was determined when I got to university that I was going to succeed, because I felt like I had so many people to prove wrong that didn't believe in me. So if I could have maybe got that fight in me a bit sooner, that might have been more helpful as well. But timing's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You've given some really great advice, including all the things on portfolios and how to prepare yourself to approach interviews and things like that. Have you got any other advice that you'd kind of like to give the people who are listening and watching this back?
Like I said before, go to open days and try and prepare yourself with questions to ask lecturers. And if there's any students that are already on the courses that you're applying for, speak to them so you know what the university is about, what the course is about, and even the place that you're going to, because I think that's really, really important. And I mean, like I said, when I was thinking that I didn't want to do things, there are some things that I think we're so scared of doing, and that's what stops us. But sometimes I think you just have to go for it. Like, just try and believe in yourself for future you, if not the you right now when applying for university, but the future you would probably thank you for it later. Because just to apply for university is a really big decision to make. And I think the more information you can have about it, and the more you know about the course, and like I say, getting feedback from people about that course and the places that you want to travel, you have to go and visit them. It's the best thing to do, because you don't want to be somewhere where you're not happy. And I think Sarah and I spoke about this a bit earlier, that, you know, when you go and meet the lecturers and the students, you'll find out so much about the course. You can ask about how much contact time do you have? So what are the hours like? What are the lectures like? When will I receive feedback? You know, how many students are in the class? Because you can gauge the ratio of one lecturer to a student. I mean, at the minute, obviously, we give our students feedback every single week. We make time to do one-to-ones or group critiques. And I think asking questions like that is really important, because you need to get as much out of your university experience as you possibly can. So you kind of have to think selfishly about those things. Like, what are you getting out of that course for you?
And you know what's really interesting? Whilst you've been talking, I was thinking about the current students that we have here, and I was thinking, like, there are so many parallels between that and actually going for a job interview as well. Because a job interview is a two-way street. You know, you want to find out whether that company is going to be right for you as much as they need to find out whether you're going to be right for them. So all the things you were just saying, Danielle, about, you know, finding out about, you know, I think doing your research on different types, if it's your situation, publishers, and therefore what potential gaps are, and then therefore, you know, is that going to be a good fit for your skills is really important as well.
Yeah.
I should have said that earlier on. Willow said that it was lovely to see so much representation in those books.
Yeah.
And Tasia, sorry if I'm not saying that right, she just said thank you very much for your good advice.
Oh, it's nice. Thank you.
So I can see that Tasia, if I'm saying that right, is just typing again. Yeah, I guess the next question is what's next? What's next for you? What's your future plans?
It's a big question, you know, actually. Been thinking about this a lot. It's funny you should say that. I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I'm actually in the process of relaunching my website. I love where I work, but I've now been there, like I say, nearly 6 years. So I've done the list of finding publishers that, you know, you could expand to in the future, which is why I'd recommend doing it. So for me, in an ideal world, let's just say nothing, obviously, I'd love to teach more hours. So at the minute, I only teach 1 day a week with the first years. So I'd love to teach more at, you know, the Cambridge School of Art, and I'd love to be involved in more years and more students. That's something I love being there. And I'm glad that we're back, you know, and not everything's online. So it's so great to be in the studio. So on that side of my teaching, yeah, I'd love to be teaching more. I'd love for that to be my main job, and for, you know, book design or graphic design to be something perhaps that I freelance, or, you know, at the minute, obviously I'm more of a graphic designer compared to a teacher, and I'd kind of like that balance to change. I obviously you always want to be a designer and would love to see myself continuing in publishing, but you know, my heart is really in teaching at the minute. So I think going forward, that's, you know, if you say like 10 years time type thing, that's where I'd love it to be in an ideal world.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much for coming to speak to us today and all your really helpful advice. It's been really interesting and inspirational listening to you as well as really helpful.